Mara stood at the edge of the old playground where she and Jonas used to meet every evening. The swings creaked softly in the breeze, as if calling her back to happier days. She closed her eyes and remembered Jonas's laugh, bright and full of wonder, echoing across the empty field. The memory made her chest tighten. He had moved to another planet 6 months ago, and each day since had felt colder, emptier, and strangely quiet. She walked slowly toward the first swing, brushing her fingers over the worn chains. The metal was cool, smooth from years of use. She remembered how Jonas would dare her to swing higher than the bars. They would laugh until their sides hurt and the sun slipped below the horizon. Now when she swung, she felt weightless, in the wrong way, a hollow space inside where joy used to live. Mara took a deep breath and let the swing carry her. She closed her eyes, imagining the rush of wind in her hair and Jonas's voice cheering her on, but when she opened her eyes, she saw only empty metal and fading light. Doubt crept in. She wondered if he still thought of her at all. Maybe he had made new friends. Maybe he had moved on. The idea hurt more than the separation. At home, she found his old hololetter lying unopened on her desk. She stared at the small, glowing cube. She had read it the day it arrived, a few simple words and a fractured image of his new street. He had written that he missed her but was busy with school and friends, and he apologized for not writing more. Mara touched the edge of the letter, wishing it could become longer, warmer, fuller. All night. She lay awake under her blanket, watching the stars through her window. She thought about the journeys humans had made across the galaxy. They left Earth centuries ago, traveling through dark space to build new worlds. They faced dangers that could have ended everything, yet they survived. They learned new languages, new ways to work and live. They built cities on planets with purple skies and seas that shimmered like pearls. Wherever they went, humans carried hope in their hearts and found ways to shine. Mara closed her eyes and let that thought grow. If humanity could reach the stars, then maybe she could find a way to reach Jonas again. She sat up and switched on her desk lamp. The hololetter's soft light glowed in the corner of the room. She opened her holocom device and scrolled through. Her contacts, his name was there, blinking with a tiny dot to show he was online. Her heart pounded. She typed a message. "Hey Jonas, I miss you. Can we talk?" Then she hesitated. What if he was busy? What if he did not care? She erased the message. She closed her eyes and took 3 long breaths. On the 3rd breath, she pressed send. The reply came almost immediately. "I miss you too, Mara. I'd love to talk." Her heart lifted as if it had been freed from a heavy weight. She smiled, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. The screen showed a video call. Request. She tapped accept. Jonas's bright face filled the screen. He sat in a cozy room with shelves of books behind him. His hair was longer than she remembered, and he wore a grin that made her feel warm inside. "Hey," he said softly. "Hi," Mara replied. Her voice trembled a little. They talked about small things at first, the weather on his planet, the new foods he was trying, the strange plants growing in his yard. She told him about her school project and the way the playground made her feel. With each word, the knot in her chest loosened. Then Jonas asked, "Remember how we said we'd find a way to visit each other? Maybe it's time to plan it."
Mara's
eyes widened. "You mean you really want me to come there?" Of course, he said. "I want to show you everything, and I want you here." She felt hope bloom inside her, bright and strong. She remembered all the hardships humans had overcome. If they could cross light years of space, she could save up the fare, talk to her. Parents, make the journey. She could sit beside Jonas on his new playground and feel the laughter return. They spent the next hour planning. They spoke of spaceships and ticket costs and dates. They spoke of the games they would play in green fields under 2 suns. They spoke of all the stories they would share. By the time the call ended, Mara felt lighter than she had in months. She stood again at the playground the next evening, the swings still creaking in the wind. But this time she smiled. She reached for the chains and pushed herself forward. Higher and higher she swung, imagining the day she would soar across worlds to see Jonas. The air rushed around her, and she felt brave. She felt hope. Mara slowed the swing, climbed down, and looked at the empty field. She whispered, "See you soon, my friend." Then she walked away, her steps firm and certain. She had taken the first step toward reconnecting, just as humans had taken their first step onto distant worlds. She carried hope in her heart, and she knew that no distance was too great when two hearts decided to bridge it. Mara sat at her desk, staring at the small crystal globe that Jonas had given her. Before he left, the light inside it pulsed gently like a heartbeat. She remembered the day they had stood together on the observation deck, watching Mother Earth shrink behind the shuttle's thrusters. Jonas had pressed the globe into her hand and said, "So, we always share the same light." Now the globe sat cold and dim on her desk, and she felt more alone than ever. Outside her window, the evening sky glowed with 1,000 city lights. Humans had spread across the galaxy, building bright towns on dozens of worlds. They had learned new languages, fought fierce storms, and tamed planets that once seemed impossible. Yet here in her room, Mara felt powerless against the distance between her and Jonas. He was hundreds of light-minutes away, living a life she could not join, at least, not yet. Her holocom device chimed softly. She jumped and reached for it, hoping it was Jonas. But it was only a group message from her classmates about the school dance. She had wanted to ask Jonas to dance with her, to share one more memory under twinkling lights. But she had not been brave enough. Instead, she watched her friends plan outfits in musical worlds she no longer felt part of. Mara opened her hololetter from Jonas again. He had written about his new home, the gentle rains that smelled like sweet spice, the gardens that glowed under pale moons, and the friends who crowded around his dinner table. He sounded happy. Mara smiled at first, but then the smile faded. Happiness should not leave someone so far behind. She pressed her fingers to her temples and closed her eyes. She thought of humanity's greatest journeys, how they had crossed deadly voids, survived on ragged ships, and built cities on red deserts and icy plains. Humans had carried hope like a shield, and that hope had guided them through darkness. She drew a deep breath and made a decision. If humans could travel millions of miles through cold space, she could find a way to bridge this gap in her heart. Mara stood and paced the room. She needed a plan. First, she would send Jonas something more than words. She pulled open a drawer and found her old stamp-pressed letters, each one filled with jokes and doodles. She took a fresh sheet of paper and wrote, "I miss you more than words can say. I wish I could share the dance with you under the stars." She drew a simple picture of two figures dancing under a dome of lights. Then she sealed the letter and dropped it into the stellar post-chute. Next, she needed to do something that showed she believed in their bond. She remembered the learning pods at school, where students built small drones. She had seen a design that could carry a voice recorder across short distances. What if she built a network of tiny relay drones that could travel from her planet's surface up to the nearest buoy in orbit? It would be a small achievement, but it would show Jonas that she was using her human ingenuity to reach him. Mara spent the next day in the school workshop. She sorted wires and sensors, soldering connections under the glow of magnifying lamps. Her classmates watched in curiosity as she worked late into the evening. Some whispered that she was chasing a silly dream. But Mara remembered the stories of human pioneers who landed on alien beaches with nothing but determination and a toolkit. She refused to give up. By nightfall, she had assembled 3 slender drones, each no larger than her forearm. She loaded one with her voice message, a simple recording of her singing their favorite song. Her voice cracked at first, but she steadied herself and sang clearly. Then she watched as the first drone lifted off, its rotors humming softly. It climbed into the sky, fading into the soft glow of the city lights. Mara felt her heart race. She watched 2 more drones follow in tight formation, weaving through the towers until they disappeared from sight.
Yes.
She pressed her hand to her chest and whispered, "This is for you, Jonas." The next morning, Mara rushed to her holo-com, her message history filled with updates. The trio of drones had reached orbit and linked to the Kumbui as planned. The system had forwarded her recording to Jonas. Tears of relief pricked her eyes. She opened a fresh chat window and typed, "Did you get it?" Moments later, his reply appeared. "I heard you, Mara. Your voice reached me across moons and stars. I can't stop smiling." Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. A burst of joy lit her chest like the pulse of her crystal globe. She replied, "I'll keep sending my heart any way I can." He answered, "I'll be waiting for you. One day we'll share those lights together." Mara closed her HOLO-cum and looked at the globe on her desk. Its glow had returned, as though it sensed her hope. She touched its surface and smiled softly. Humans had built paths. Mara woke before dawn, her heart fluttering like a hummingbird's wings. Last night's success had filled her with courage, but today she felt the weight of distance again. Jonas was light years away, living his new life under alien suns, and she remained here, on a blue world that felt half empty without him. Yet she refused to sink into despair. Humans were survivors. Each generation had stretched its arms into the void and found a way. Mara would too. She dressed quickly and slipped. Outside, while the air was still cool, the city's towers glowed faintly in the morning haze. In the distance, the workshop where she had built her drones stood silent. She walked there, her boots echoing on the pavement, thinking of her plan. Last night, her message had flown on, tiny wings of technology. Jonas had heard her song and promised to wait. Now she needed the next step, something bigger, something that would show him she believed in their bond. Enough to cross worlds, Mara entered the workshop and activated the holoprojector at her workbench. A three-dimensional map of the sector illuminated the table, showing planetary orbits, relay stations, and shipping lanes. She pinpointed her home planet, Sirius 4, and traced the line to the orbital buoy she had reached before. Then she followed the network to Jonas's world, Saren Prime. The path wound through bureaucratic checkpoints and commercial routes. Most humans traveled on passenger liners, but tickets were costly. She pressed her lips together, knowing she would need help. She picked up her cum device and called her friend Theo. He answered with a groggy hello, and then recognition crept into his voice. "Mara? Up early?" She took a breath. "Theo, I need your advice. I want to visit Jonas." Silence followed. Finally, he said, "That's ... big. How will you pay for it? And the papers?" Mara felt her chest tighten. She had not thought through every detail, but she pressed on. "I can save my stipend. I can offer my coding skills to the station board for credits. I just need a plan." Theo sighed, but she heard warmth there. "Okay. I'll help you draft an application. Meet me at the Civic Hall at 9. She thanked him and ended the call. Humans helped each other, she reminded herself. They shared burdens and built bridges. She believed in that. At the Civic Hall, Theo and Mara sat under a vaulted ceiling, streaked with hall art of past explorers. Together they filled out forms, cargo credits, travel permits, quarantine clearances. They calculated costs for transit, lodging, and supplies. Theo sketched a letter of recommendation from her drone workshop instructor. By midday, they had a solid application and a plan to pitch to the council. Mara felt her hope grow stronger with each completed form, but fear lingered. What if the council said no? What if Jonas moved again before she arrived? She paced outside the hall, her mind racing. She thought of humanity's early settlers on the Death World frontier who arrived with nothing and built thriving worlds. They faced acid rain, toxic flora, and predators that could shred steel. Yet they persevered by unity and grit. Mara drew a deep breath. If they had pressed on through storms and starvation, she could face a bureaucrat's paperwork. Inside, the council chamber buzzed with officials in colorful uniforms. Mara and Theo presented their case. A human story of friendship and hope. A young engineer willing to give her skills in exchange for passage. And a promise that this journey would strengthen interplanetary bonds. The head counselor, an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes, listened quietly. When Mara finished, the chamber was silent. The counselor tapped a data pad. Then she spoke softly. "Your proposal shows heart and ingenuity, hallmarks of humanity's finest traits. We approve your travel permit and grant you credits for passage on the next liner." Tears filled Mara's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Theo clapped her on the shoulder. "I humans always find a way." That evening, Mara returned home and packed a small bag, a spare flight suit, her cum device, the crystal globe Jonas had given her, and a handful of home comforts, photographs, favorite snacks, and a sketchbook. She paused at the door, gazing at the playground where she and Jonas had swung together. The swings swayed in the wind, waiting for her to return one day. She patted the globe and said, "I'll be back soon." The next morning, she stood at the shuttleport's departure gate. Dozens of travelers hustled past, merchants, scientists, families each with their own story. A voice over the intercom called, "Final boarding for Stellar Horizon, route Cirrus 4 to Surin Prime." Mara's heart hammered as she stepped forward. She scanned her permit, then walked down the ramp into the ship's belly. Inside, the hum of engines and the chatter of passengers felt like a welcome home. She found her assigned pod and settled into a plush seat. Through the viewport, Sarasvara shrank into a pale blue dot, then drifted away into starlight. Mara pressed her forehead against the glass and whispered, "For you, Jonas." She closed her eyes and let the ship's gentle vibration lull her across the gap between planets. Jonas felt his cum device buzz. He opened a channel to Mara's world and caught her whisper, "For you, Jonas." He looked up at Sarin Prime's twin moons and smiled. Humanity had built roads to the star's end now. A young engineer was aboard a ship, carrying hope in her heart and a promise on her lips. He whispered back, "I'll see you soon, Mara." Two souls, separated by space, had found a way. And as the stellar horizon sped through the cosmos, it carried more than a travel, it carried the enduring will of humanity to connect, to hope, and to never let distance dim the light of friendship. Mara woke to the gentle hum of the stellar horizon's engines. Through the narrow viewport, she watched endless stars drift past like silver snow. Her heart fluttered with excitement and nerves. She was journeying toward Jonas, but the distance felt as vast as the void outside. She closed her eyes and pictured his warm smile, her anchor in this quiet sea of space. After breakfast in the ship's mess hall, Mara stepped into the corridor and stretched. She found a small observation lounge where a few passengers read or conversed. She settled into a window seat. A scientist nearby studied hollows of strange plant specimens on Sarin. Prime Mara offered a shy greeting, and he smiled back, explaining how he researched alien forests. His passion brightened the room. She realized humans everywhere tried to understand new worlds, and she was doing the same for her own heart. She pulled out her holocom and rewatched Jonas's last message. He had spoken of moonlight dances and new songs he wanted her to sing. She replied with a wave emoji and a simple, "See you soon." Then she tapped a new idea. What if she surprised him with a small gift? She opened her sketchbook and drew a quick picture of two figures dancing under twin moons, Sarin Prime's moons. She scanned it into her cum and sent it off, imagining his delight when he saw it. Hours passed slowly. The ship glided through empty space, passing a series of relay buoys that beamed data between worlds. Mara watched each buoy light up in sequence, a chain of human connections stretching across millions of kilometers. She felt pride in humanity's gift for building networks of technology and of friendship. At midday, an alarm tone echoed through the cabin. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention passengers, we are preparing to enter the Betelgeuse corridor. Please secure all loose items." Amara stowed her sketchbook and held onto her seat. The engines surged as it accelerated. The lights dimmed and brightened with each boost. She gripped the armrests, her heart thumping, yet fear did not take hold. Yoshi. She reminded herself that humans had braved supernova belts and cosmic storms. They had mapped safe passages through nebulae. She could handle a little turbulence. Moments later, the ride smoothed. Mara let out a shaky breath and looked around. A child nearby giggled, pretending to ride through waves. Passengers shared relieved smiles. The simple act of laughter warmed her. She thought of Jonas's laugh and she pressed a quick message. turbulence survived. Remind me to dance in zero gravity with you. And she laughed softly at her own joke. That evening, the stellar horizon approached Saturn Prime. Mara watched as the planet's soft purple glow filled the viewport. She rose and walked to the airlock door. Her reflection stared back, eyes wide with hope. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a corridor lit by violet lamps. She stepped forward, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Customs officers greeted her with friendly nods. She handed over her travel permit and health clearance. Each official treated her kindly, welcoming her to their world. She answered questions about her purpose. "I'm here to see a friend." Their smiles deepened. "Then welcome," one said. "Enjoy our world." Mara collected her bag and stepped into the arrival hall. Outside, a gentle mist drifted under a lavender sky. Twin moons hung low like silver coins balanced in the air. She closed her eyes and breathed in the alien air, which smelled faintly of sweet spice and rain. Her heart swelled. She was here. She followed signs to the transit lounge and sent Jonas a quick message. "I've arrived. Where can I find you?" She noticed high arches covered in glowing vines and paths lined with lanterns that floated like small planets. Saturn Prime felt alive, yet she felt a pang of loneliness without Jonas by her side. She tapped her "Come again. I can't wait to see you." While she waited, Mara wandered into a garden courtyard. Strange flowers pulsed with soft light, and gentle streams traced intricate patterns in smooth stones. A local gardener tended to the plants. Mara woke to a soft glow from the crystal globe, pulsed like a heartbeat as she and Jonas stepped into the morning light. The air on Saturn Prime smelled of spice and dew. Today was the annual Lantern Festival. Jonas guided her through the crowds, his smile warm. The world felt new and full of promise. Floating lanterns shaped like flowers drifted toward the violet sky. Each held a ribbon with a wish. Mara wrote, "Our hearts stay close across the stars," and tied it on. She watched the lantern rise beside hundreds of others, a sea of glowing hopes. Her chest swelled with pride and belief. As they walked, Jonas's "Come" device beeped. His research team needed data on the glowing vines. He hesitated, then said, "I must go. I'm sorry." His voice softened. He pressed her hand, then melted into the crowd. Mara watched his tall silhouette fade under the lanterns, feeling that ache settle in her chest once more. She stood alone beneath floating lights, the sky vast and silent. The distance she had crossed in space felt small compared to the gap inside her heart. She closed her eyes and remembered human pioneers on alien worlds. They faced danger, cold, and hunger. She drew in a deep breath and reminded herself that hope would guide her forward. Turning away from the plaza, Mara found a small alien child crying by a stall. His toy drone lay broken. She knelt and used a tiny tool she carried to mend its gears. The child's face brightened as the drone whirred alive. Locals applauded her kindness. She felt the true spirit of humanity shine in every act of help. Later, she sat by a silver fountain and wrote a short verse on her holopad. "Under 2 moons, I carry your light." She added a simple sketch of 2 hands touching across star-studded space. With a hopeful smile, she sent it to Jonas. She imagined his face when he read her words, and her own heart warmed. Jonas's reply came quickly. "Your poem makes me brave. I want to see every drawing you make here." Mara's chest fluttered. Even when he was away, her words had reached him. She felt closer than ever, connected by messages and shared dreams. Human hope, she thought, could bridge any distance. Hunger led her to a food stall where humans served Earth treats beside local dishes. She tasted a spiced pastry and raised a cup of glowing tea. The merchant offered a smile and said, "To friendship." A soft melody floated from a nearby stage. An alien musician played gentle notes that carried through the festival, easing her soul. Festival dancers invited her to join a circle under a lantern arch. Her feet hesitated, then lightly stepped into the rhythm. They moved in graceful arcs among the lanterns. She followed their steps, feeling laughter bubble up inside her. With each turn, her worry faded, replaced by a sense of belonging and shared joy. When she finished, Jonas found her under a lantern tree. He took her hand and guided her to a quieter path. "You shine here," he said, his eyes soft. "You bring Earth's strength to this world." She felt tears prick her eyes. In his words, she heard the pride of human resilience. They stood close, hearts beating in time. They walked along lantern-lit streets toward the edge of the festival. Jonas pointed out news screens showing human explorers on distant moons. Listened, imagining the brave crews who landed on new worlds. "We humans never stop reaching out," she said. He nodded. "And we never stop believing." By the water's edge, they held the crystal globe together. Its gentle pulse matched their breaths. "We share this light wherever we are," Jonas whispered. Mara leaned her head on his shoulder. Under the twin moons and drifting lanterns, she felt the full power of human hope, a light no darkness could dim. The festival's glow began to fade as the lanterns floated higher into the night. Jonas and Mara paused on a bridge of glowing vines. They watched each lantern grow small against the sky. Each floating wish felt like a promise they had made to each other. Hope had guided them across worlds and back again. Back at Jonas's quarters, they shared the earth snacks Mara brought. She explained how humans had turned tea culture into a chance to connect on many worlds. Jonas listened, intrigued. He planned a small gathering so she could teach others Earth customs. Together, they sketched ideas, blending traditions. That night, Mara looked out at Saren Prime's twin moons. From Jonas's balcony, she held his hand and whispered, "Distance is just a test of our will." He nodded, meeting her gaze. Down below, lantern lights winked like stars. Together, they had proven that human hope, kindness, and courage could light even the darkest. "Paths and bring two souls back together," Mara floated on a soft cloud of lantern light as she and Jonas walked home after the festival. Her heart felt full again, but she knew distance could return at any moment. Jonas had told her of a new assignment. He would travel to Saren Prime's outer moon, Nova Velt, to help build a research outpost. He would leave in 3 days. When Mara heard his news, her smile faltered. She pictured the moon's frozen plains and silent skies, so unlike Saren Prime's warm evening gardens. Jonas would be alone there for months. She felt a familiar ache, the same empty tug that had driven her to build drones and chase permits. She wanted to reach him, but how? That night, she lay awake under twin moons, listening to the quiet hum of his ship in the hangar below. She imagined him stepping across the moon's cratered surface, windless and stark. In the dark, she thought of human pioneers who had crossed desert worlds and ice planets, had built homes where none existed simply by believing they could. If humans could tame wild landscapes, she could find a way to bridge this gap. Early the next morning, Mara tapped her come device and sent Jonas a simple message. "I'll miss you. Tell me how I can help," replied with a gentle emoji, and wrote, "Stay here and shine. Build something I can see." She read his words and felt hope flicker. She would build something, an honest gift of her time and care. Mara spent the day in the workshop, gathering clear panels, thin metal frames, and small hydroponic pumps. She sketched a plan. A portable greenhouse that could fit in a research rover. It would grow fresh herbs and tiny flowers under artificial lights, bringing a touch of home to the lonely moon station. She worked with steady hands, soldering circuits and sealing seams against the cold. Every bolt she tightened, every tube she connected, reminded her of human determination, adversity met with ingenuity. On the second day, she tested the greenhouse's self-watering system under simulated moonlight. The tiny seedlings of basil and violet starflower responded quickly, their leaves bright against the metal floor. She sent Jonas a live holofeed of the young plants. He tapped his cum joyfully and said, "You make life bloom, even in darkness." Those words warmed Mara more than any sunlight. But doubt whispered at the edges of her mind. What if the unit failed under Nova Velt's harsh conditions? What if the station's crew had no room? At night, she lay awake again, worrying. Then she recalled a lesson her mentor Joreen had taught her. Test adapt, and never forget why. You build. She closed her eyes and felt the purpose behind her work to remind Jonas he was never truly alone. On the morning of Jonas's departure, Mara carried the folded greenhouse down to the hangar. She rode in a small transport skiff beside the sleek research shuttle. The airlock doors slid open to reveal Nova Velt's silent plains through the viewport. Snow-white dust drifted across wide craters. Mara felt a pang of sadness, but she held the greenhouse to her chest and breathed deeply. Inside the shuttle's lab compartment, Jonas unpacked supplies. He turned when Mara entered, his eyes shining with gratitude. "You came," he said softly. He helped her unfold the greenhouse, clicking panels into place. They sealed it to a rover rack and activated its power cells. The soft glow of the grow lights kicked on, bathing the seedlings in gentle warmth. Tiny green leaves glowed like hope itself. Jonas guided Mara to the airlock. "I have to finish my work," he said, voice thick. "You stay until I'm done?" Turned over, she had dreamed of exploring other worlds, but this was his assignment. She thought of the loneliness she had felt on Ceros 4, the ache that drove her to build drones. She did not want Jonas to know that pain against. She wanted to be his strength, not his burden. She shook her head. "I need to go home and keep building for you. I'll send more greenhouses to other outposts. You won't be alone." He held her close and whispered, "I'll be here, tending them and thinking of you." They kissed under Nova Velt's twin moons, cold but bright. Then Mara stepped back through the airlock into the shuttle's corridor. The doors closed, and she watched Jonas's figure through the small window until he faded behind sealed bulkheads. On the way back to Ceres 4, Mara planned her next project, a network of greenhouses linked by automated rovers. Each station would get a living reminder of home. She sketched ideas on her com, scribbling notes about sensors, growth cycles, and routing algorithms. Her heart felt light with purpose again. That evening, back on her home world, Mara sat on the same playground swing where she had begun her journey. The globe Jonas had given her pulsed softly in her pocket. She pulled it out and pressed her forehead against the cool crystal. Its heartbeat matched her own. She whispered into it, "I'm building bridges, just like humans always do." Then she closed her eyes, imagining the seedlings sprouting under alien skies, their green leaves reaching for the light. Mara let the swing carry her gently back. And forth, above her, stars filled the sky, and Earth's silhouette glowed in the distance. She felt